Good morning, and welcome to the First Existentialist Congregation of Atlanta. We are a philosophically based spiritual community founded on existentialist philosophy and feminist principles and dedicated to human liberation and the protection of the natural world. My name is Patton White, and I will be facilitating this morning's celebration of life. Our opening words today are a quote by a writer named J.T. Geisinger, or Geisinger. They say, one of the first shrinks I went to after Cass died told me that the brain has a hardwired need to find correlations, to make sense of nonsensical data by making connections between unrelated things. Humans have evolved a universal tendency to seek patterns in random information, hence the existence of fortune tellers and dream interpreters, and people who see the face of Jesus in a piece of toast. But the cold, hard truth is that there are no connections between anything. Life, all of existence, is totally random. Your lucky lottery numbers aren't really lucky because there's no such thing as luck. The black cat that crosses your path isn't a bad omen. It's just a cat out for a walk. An eclipse doesn't mean that the gods are angry. Just as a bus narrowly missing you as you cross the street doesn't mean there's a guardian angel looking out for you. There are no gods, there are no angels. Superstitions aren't real, and no amount of wishing, praying, or rationalizing can change the fact that life is just one long sequence of random events that ultimately have no meaning. I really hated that shrink. I appreciate JT's sense of humor. Anyway, so this morning we have a new congregational song for us, and this is actually, I don't think, one that's in our books, but it may be familiar to some of you. It is There is a Balm in Gilead. And so I would like to invite you to join our musicians, Robert Stewart, Mick Kinney, myself, and Jean Heinrich, as we present Balm in Gilead. And please rise in body or spirit as you are willing and able to join us in singing. Thank you to the musicians for that wonderful version of Balm in Gilead. This morning's speaker is familiar to many of us. Kate Hauk spoke to us many times in person over a number of years before she moved to Columbus, Ohio. Kate is an ordained UCC minister, yoga teacher, writer, and speaker. 6 years ago, she moved from her beloved Atlanta community of 32 years to live closer to her 96-year-old mother in Ohio. Always an avid dancer, she's resumed international folk dancing in Columbus and is a docent at the Columbus Museum of Art. She misses all of you and looks forward to, virtually, sharing her reflections on life these days with you today. So please join me in welcoming Kate Hauk.
Greetings from Columbus, Ohio, where they had frost warnings last night. It is such an honor to be asked to speak to all of you. I just wish it could be in person. I realized when I was making this video on my iPhone, the first time, by the way, ever, I have pre-recorded a message on my iPhone. I realized how much I missed the interaction with all of you. It was kind of like a dance we were in together when I would speak, your facial expressions and my pausing and just kind of creating the talk together. But I'll take this. It's a chance to learn something new, and it is a way to be with you, even if virtually. It has been 6 years since I left Atlanta, and I have missed everybody terribly. I have missed my community. Facebook is okay, but it is certainly not the same. But I want to begin with a Rumi poem, because what I thought I would do, it would be to share little vignettes based on the outline that this poem presents as a way of talking about some of my experiences in the last several years of coming back to a place where I grew up, but where I left in my very early 20s for a good long time, at least 35 plus years, and now have come back to be close to my mom. And it's been an interesting time. Interesting kind of is one of those words that doesn't go very well. So I'm going to let Rumi do my talking for me right now. Don't grieve, he says. Anything you lose comes around in another form. The child weaned from mother's milk now drinks wine and honey mixed. The beloved's joy moves from unmarked box to unmarked box, from cell to cell, as rainwater down into flower bed, as roses up from the ground. Now it looks like a plate of rice and fish, now a cliff covered with vines, now a horse being saddled. It hides within these till one day it cracks them open. Well, since I've seen you, I have turned 70. And anytime there's a decade change in my life, that feels like a big thing. The last real decade change celebration I had was at the Knights of Columbus with a Zydeco dance when I turned 50. And they had alligator piñatas and this wonderful tradition of putting the person with the 50th birthday in the center of the dance circle, and then people would take turns dancing with her or him until the music stopped. And of course the music was quite fast, and it was just amazing experience. So what could possibly top that? 70 feels like a much bigger decade change than 60 did. And I think of the Simon and Garfunkel song where they sing about old friends, and can you imagine us years from today sharing a park bench quietly? How terribly strange to be 70, old friends. Well, it's a beautiful song, but it really came home when I realized I was the same age as those two old men sitting on a park bench. And I wondered how I was going to mark the occasion in Ohio. You know, someone said once, you can make new friends, but you can't make old friends. And for the longest time in my own grief at my leaving Atlanta, I really saw my old friends, you know, I saw that statement as better than. You can make new friends, but you can't make old friends. And the longer I'm here, and the more I listen to the gist of Rumi's words, the more I think it's certainly not the same. But rather than being a comparative, evaluative proposition, it has become just a statement that it's just very different. And when I put it in the context of the beloved's joy moving from unmarked box to unmarked box, changing form, just changing period, it takes on a whole new and I think a deeper sense that I can live with more peacefully. So, my 70th birthday was coming up, and I didn't have many expectations about it. I did happen to have a Zoom call that day on my birthday. It happened to land on my birthday. I'd been having a Zoom call with 3 other women friends that we just decided we enjoyed chatting. That was the whole purpose of the Zoom meeting, and that was scheduled for my birthday. So I went ahead and joined in the Zoom call. Now these are 3 people that I knew back in the day when I was living here, you know, in high school, junior high school, you know, and then early college, and, you know, the 60s and the 70s, basically. And unbeknownst to me, they had planned a little something special for my birthday. They decided to each come up with a memory of me from back in those days. Now, one thing I am learning too is that little things can be very concentrated. A little thing can hold a lot. And these were little things they came up with, just a memory each of something they recalled about me, knowing me back when. And the first woman who spoke, Linda, talked about the time when we were summer camp counselors together. And she remembered a staff meeting, we had one every morning, where I had shared an idea that she still thinks to this day is a good idea. And it was something very simple, like I thought maybe we could have a day where the senior citizens were brought in and they could spend a day with the younger campers. That was it from beginning, middle, and end. But my friend thought it was wonderful. And she relayed it back to me. And in doing that, she handed me a piece, a very small one, of my life, of something good that I had said, a creative idea that I had forgotten about. And it was her memory that was given back to me. And in her sharing of her memory, it was like I received a piece of my past from her memory. Now, this reminds me of what Fred Rogers has said before, saying, be a storehouse of your child's finest moments. And I think that applies to people of all ages. And it was like she was this storehouse, this card catalog of things about me that she remembered, this one particular little thing that was interesting and exciting to her. And believe me, back in those days, those moments weren't all the time, you know. Emerging through and from adolescence, I remember particularly days in junior high and high school that were awful, where the inferno would have been welcome, you know, that sense of being in a school atmosphere that had a PhD in exclusion, you know, the in crowd and the out crowd. We were coming from a place where the girls in those days who were the popular ones would call each other on the phone, just this little in-group, and decide whether they curled their hair up or under. And back in those days, that was kind of a big thing because you wanted to fit in, because you were still kind of like Jell-O in terms of finding out who you were. And so, you know, if flipping your hair up and fitting in with the crowd worked, why, you know, you took it. And that was important back then, I'm sorry to say. So that was the kind of thing. It was the kind of thing where so many of us knew that we never had a chance of being the Snow Princess prom queen, you know. And now I look back at that and I think that was important, but it was back then because that you were sort of getting your definition of who you were socially, and in that atmosphere it was very rigid and, like I said, very exclusive. So the second memory that was shared was from my friend Beth, who I knew back in high school and junior high school, and it was a photograph of the two of us with peace signs painted all over our faces and cut off jeans and standing barefoot, locked arms, just full of adolescent moxie, and the very stingy Ohio sun actually being out that day and warming our shoulders. I remembered that moment when I looked at the photograph. And that moment, too, reminded me that there was much more at work at that time of goodness, of connection, than I had remembered. The third woman in the group, Lynn, was the one who had planned it in the first place. She was the one I knew the least, but for me, she became like a ghost of friendship future. She portended the possibility of deepened connection and kinship with a new friend yet to be. And that was a great, great gift. And after that little Zoom call, I went to an outdoor socially distanced dance in a parking lot, an international folk dance. No stuffed alligators at this one, but a wonderful boombox of Macedonian and Serbian and Balkan music, and the wind in our hair and the light hitting our masks, our many-colored masks, in ways that just seemed to shimmer along with each step. Another transition that I lived into since moving to Columbus evoked the memory of my art teacher in elementary school, Mr. Woolley. Now, Mr. Woolley I have talked about before, but all you have to do is picture a tortoise without his shell and just like a package of cotton balls on his head without the plastic, you know, just a little tiny man with shoes that had acrylic paint splatters all over them, and always had linseed oil on his hands. They just sort of glistened. And he was the one who gave me my own drawer in my art room. It was on the day that a second grade teacher had torn up my picture because we were just to do circular clock faces. We were learning how to tell time, and I had embellished all the smudges. You remember the size of those pencils we had to use were like redwood trees, and I had made wallpaper out of the smudges and electrical outlets, and had embellished a cuckoo clock, and anyway, she tore it up because we were just supposed to do the clock faces. And I guess when Mr. Woolley heard about that in the teacher's lounge, the first thing he did was to get a roll of masking tape and put my name on it and put it on a drawer and say that from now on, I was to bring all my drawings, all my work there. I had a place in that art room. Well, coming to Ohio, a lot of my plans didn't work out. No big surprise, that happens. But I found myself spending a lot of time in the Columbus Art Museum, decades later, from Mr. Woolley. And I saw a brochure about docents and decided to apply. Now, I have no great training or degrees in art history, just a love of art and my own private studies and interests, but nothing to write home about compared to the other docents who were applying. But in the little space in the application form where they asked why you wanted to do it, I told the story of Mr. Woolley, and I said that I wanted to possibly be someone in someone's life who could just be a welcoming, listening, encouraging presence with others as we learned together about art. And so I am a roaming docent. I got a little scholarship to the training program, and I have enjoyed going up to people and interacting with them. One memorable conversation was with a young high school man who looked at one painting of a naked woman looking at herself in the mirror. It is a very stunning painting by Motley, and he looked at this painting, and it is so not like a centerfold at all, just like the opposite. It's like this almost a sacred moment that we catch her looking at herself, and it's almost with reverence that you look at that picture. And his first comment gave me so much hope. He said, "I wonder if she knows how beautiful she is." Always remembered that. And so later on this year, after the art museum closed, it opened very gradually just a few weeks ago, and the docents decided to make a quilt, and each one of us was to make a patch depicting our experience of the pandemic. which I did. The experience that stood out was my daughter's getting me a surprise mattress, which was a belated Christmas present that I actually got on my birthday. I'd been sleeping on the mattress that I slept on when I was 6 years old in my mother's house, and my daughter decided to just surprise me with a new one. And so from my quilt patch about experiences during the pandemic that meant something to me, I took a piece of the old mattress and I made a lighthouse. And I used what was at hand, including 3 broom straws, which I painted gold, that became the light coming out of the lighthouse. So there you have it, this experience of kind of joining the community of fellow learners and art lovers, this time not with a drawer of my own in the art room, but with a patch that joined other patches, which feels like a community, that making of a quilt together. Something I had never anticipated when I moved here, but symbolic to me of what Mother Teresa once said, that we have forgotten that we belong to each other. And in all these little vignettes that I have described, there has been a reminder of what Father Gregory Boyle calls radical kinship. May it be so for all of us, even at this distance. I still feel close to all of you. And I'm going to end again with the Rumi poem and hope that our lives will continue to be graced with an awareness of how many forms there are that the beloved Spirit of life comes to us. Don't grieve. Anything you lose comes round in another form. The child weaned from mother's milk now drinks wine and honey mixed. The beloved's joy moves from unmarked box to unmarked box, from cell to cell, as rainwater down into flower bed, as roses up from ground. Now it looks like a plate of rice and fish, now a cliff covered with vines, now a quilt patch. Oh, that was my own addition. Now a horse being saddled, now a soulful Zoom call. It hides within all of these till one day it cracks them open. I love you all. Thanks for letting me talk.
Thank you so much, Kate, for your words again. It's so great to see you, even if it is virtually, and to hear from you. And I hope that you, the viewer, will join us on Zoom immediately following this broadcast for our meet and greet. And Kate is, I believe, going to be there with us. You can find the access code to that meeting in the comment section of today's broadcast. In the meantime, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. I hope that you will consider coming back and joining us again next Sunday when we have another wonderful speaker, more music, etc. But until then, have a great day, have a great week, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
you.